ESPN Tucson, 1490, 104.9 FM. This is the Zach Clark Show, and I am not Zach Clark. Ryan Finley here. I am the sports editor of the Arizona Daily Star, filling in for Zach. Today, the big man is back tomorrow, where he will regale us, I believe, Stacy, with stories about his wedding.
I don't want to hear those stories.
No wedding night stories from Zach Clark?
No.
That doesn't do anything for you?
No.
Okay. Maybe he could tell us about his mini honeymoon. We've been seeing photos and videos live from there.
Something else I don't want to hear.
Something else you don't want to hear. Could he tell you about, perhaps he'll emerge a different person. You know, putting that ring on your finger, that's a big deal.
I don't wear the ring on my finger.
You know what?
The wife hates me for that.
I just noticed that. Stacy, you've been married a relatively long time.
Yes.
How do you get away with not wearing a wedding ring
I'm
on your
fat.
finger? Okay, and so where does the ring go?
In my drawer.
See, you should just get some sort of tattoo of a ring on your finger. Your wife never complained about that. It'd be good.
Oh, she would about the tat.
Nice.
She doesn't like tats.
Quick wedding ring story, and then eventually we'll talk sports. You know, it's funny, Stacy. I lost my wedding ring the 2 days before my first wedding anniversary. Thank you. I purposely bought the cheapest, easiest to replace ring possible. Right?
Okay.
Like $15. Called a guy who had gotten it for me. He was a jeweler who had done engagement ring for my wife and some other things. I said, Jim, I'm going to need you to send this to me. Send it to me at my office because I've lost it. It's the first anniversary coming up. And my wife will kill me. He sends it to me. It shows up. Open it up. Put it on. Fits perfectly. Look at the inscription on the inside. Patrick Finley's wedding date on it. not mine. And so
you just don't take it off she doesn't see it.
I just never, ever take it off. And maybe eventually I will convince my wife that we actually got married on, October 27th and not sometime in May. So there is lots to talk about.
And they actually married you instead of Pat.
Exactly. Some of what we're talking about today is actually sports related, which might be kind of fun. And we have some guests coming in a little bit later today. In our next segment, Jason Barr from K-Gun 9 will visit. He's going to talk about Tom Wilhelmsen. You know, K-Gun and Jason are going to debut their story on Tom today. And he's a very interesting story. If you don't know about him already, he prepped at Tucson High, where he was a first-round pick of the Milwaukee Brewers, dealt with some substance abuse issues, some sort of maturity issues, and ended up back in Tucson, Stacy, where he bartended at the Hut for a while. And that is how he got his nickname, the Bartender, which is the world's greatest baseball nickname.
Is it though?
Okay, it's not quite.
It's not creative at all.
It's not creative, but still. From there, you know, he latched on with the Tucson Toros, and not the real Tucson Toros, but the zombie. Do you remember the zombie Tucson Toros? The sort of, we have the rights to the name, but we're playing unaffiliated baseball Tucson Toros? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, they played in the Golden League, the independent Golden League. So he was the only player of consequence on the Tucson Toros, and turned that into basically a career back with the Seattle Mariners, and is now pitching the 7th and 8th inning for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Jason will come in to talk about that at 3:20. Coming up at 4:20, Zach Rosenblatt from a little newspaper called the Arizona Daily Star will visit us. We will talk about the upcoming NFL draft. Zach, Michael Lev, and I participated in a first-round mock draft that is available now on Tucson.com. Where's my ding? Where's my shameless plug ding? There we go. Tucson.com. Right now you can view our mock draft, so you'll know what we're talking about when Zach calls in here at 4:20. And coming up at 5:20, I'm biased here, Stacy, but it may be my favorite segment of the week, which will be Baseball Talk with Brian Finley and Erica Weston. Erica Weston from K-Gun will come upstairs. Last time she was here, I believe we used like 27 minutes to talk about Diamondbacks and the Dodgers.
It was 17, but it felt like 27.
And it may have only interested me and her, but I thought it was a great time. So Erica will join us here at 5:20. Stacy, the NFL draft is coming up tomorrow, and I have an idea. I have a notion.
Okay.
I believe, so you know, there's Fat Tuesday and Mardi Gras every year, and it's the last night where you can kind of go crazy before Lent starts, right, in the Catholic faith. So you can drink and eat meat and do all this stuff, right? Maybe you go to New Orleans, participate in some sort of a parade, throw beads, that kind of thing. Whatever the polar opposite of that is what we should call tonight. Just hear me out. Hear me out.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. This is don't get arrested Wednesday.
Okay.
The night before the NFL draft, there are probably, I don't know, Stacey, I'll be conservative here, 500 college football players who think that they're going to be drafted at some point over the course of 7 rounds this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, about 210 will, but about 500 of them
Have aspirations and think they will.
And tonight, if you're a college football player hoping to get drafted, and if you get, and we can go down the list, if you get a DUI, if you take a swing at somebody, if you get in a fight at a bar, if you shove a significant other, if you get into some sort of family dispute, if you steal something, if you get tased, if you do any tasing, if you pull a gun, if you get a gun pulled on you, if you do anything remotely resembling something dangerous and or get arrested, you ain't getting drafted, Stacey. This is
Wow.
This is lock 'em in the basement Wednesday night.
Wow.
Because if the news comes about, and we can look no further than last year, Laramie Tunsil, remember him? I sat in this studio last year with Michael Lev and Zach Clark. You remember Zach Clark? He used to host a radio show.
Yeah.
We sat in here, and I yelled and screamed that Laramie Tunsil should go 3rd overall to, I believe, the San Diego Chargers. My notion being at the time that Laramie Tunsil was as dominant an offensive lineman as we had seen in the draft in, a decade. And that his combination of size, speed, and ability would make him surefire top 5 pick, maybe number 1 overall. And an hour before the draft starts, while we're in here, video surfaces of him with a gas mask on, smoking some sort of substance. We're assuming it's weed. And the resulting panic from, I'll just say it, rich old white guys who own NFL teams, the resulting panic from them that somebody would, God forbid, smoke pot. God forbid, do it on camera. And that's the real dumb part. God forbid, own some sort of mask apparatus for the smoking of pot. Scared them so badly that he fell all the way, I believe, toward the end of the first round, where he was drafted by the Miami Dolphins, who got the best value pick of the draft. Laramie Tunsil may have been the number 1 pick in the draft, if not for that. Okay? If you are some guy from Washington State or South Florida, you're not going to even get that benefit of the doubt. You are going to be crossed off the list. And NFL teams are right now, Stacey, at this stage where they are planning who to draft and planning who fits in their plans, sort of short-term and long-term. They're looking for any excuse to cross somebody else off the list.
Yeah. They are critiquing every little thing you have done in the past 10, 15 years of your life.
I mean, there was a great story in the Arizona Republic yesterday that the Arizona Cardinals, so turned off were they by some of their recent draft picks. Jonathan Cooper, I believe, was one of them. And their sort of personal problems that they're talking to Pop Warner coaches. Pardon me. Pop Warner coaches about what a kid was like, when he was 8. Okay.
It's insane.
They're talking to everybody. And here's the thing. And we've seen some version of this in the NBA where it's taken on, character has taken on a little bit more of a premium, I think, in the NBA because you're sinking so much money into a person that you don't want them to be a scumbag. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, they are looking for reasons to cross you off the list. So we need to come up with a better name for whatever tonight is. We call it, is it Temperance Night? It's something. We could celebrate Temperance Night. This is a great idea. Stacey, this is great.
Yeah, it's good. So what's the complete opposite of purge?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And so Temperance Night, and you celebrate Temperance Night, Stacey, by, I believe, going into a windowless room, locking the doors. If you're a religious person, I believe that you sing hymns throughout the evening. If you're secular, maybe you read a book, like a nice middle-of-the-road book, with no swear words or adult situations in it. Just a book, nice book, and you pass the time away. Maybe you whittle, possibly take out some wood, a knife, some nice old-fashioned whittling. Your cell phones are taken away from you. Your radios and televisions are taken away from you. No, obviously. No alcohol, no tobacco, no drugs. It is a quiet, sober evening spent in a windowless room if you are an NFL draft pick. Because again, And somebody's going to do it, Stacey. You mark my words. We're in here tomorrow. Guarantee you. We're going to go, and so was arrested for punching a dog last night, and he won't be drafted. Guarantee you something will happen tonight. So tonight, on Temperance Night, that sound you hear will be 500 NFL draft hopefuls locking themselves in a windowless room and counting down the seconds until the draft starts tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., Stacey, is our annual ESPN Tucson 1490-1049 NFL Draft Special.
Yes.
Host Zach Clark will be joined by Ryan Finley of the Arizona Daily Star. Handsome devil, I've heard. No. And Michael Lev, and they'll spend the first thank you. They meaning we will spend the first 2 hours talking about the draft, and the third hour basically following along with you for the first 7-8 picks of the NFL draft. And it's my favorite sound of the year, Stacey. I don't know if you have this nearby. The NFL draft. I love that. The over-under on number of times you're going to hear that sound during today's show, just while talking about the draft, is like 8 or 9. It's just wonderful. The NFL draft is one of those things, Stacey, and I'm a nerd, so please forgive me. And you're learning here. I'm a total sports nerd. I love drafts. For instance, the NBA draft. I will watch every second of the NBA draft. Every second of the NBA draft. You know what I don't watch?
Well, the difference, though, is the NBA draft is a couple hours.
It's wonderful television. It's a solid 3 hours of TV.
The NFL draft is 3 days.
True, but the NBA draft. So I watch the NBA draft every year, beginning to end. Can tell you my favorite pick. I love this stuff. I watch it like a loser. You know what I don't watch? The NBA. I watch the NBA draft and I love it. I can count on, 2 hands the number of NBA games I will watch in a year. I love the NFL draft, but I am now a man without an NFL team. I may not follow a team all year, but I will watch every second over 3 days in the NFL draft. I love the NFL draft. And that's one of the reasons I believe we first started doing the NFL draft show was I figured I would be watching it and yelling at the television anyway. And might as well do it with our friends here at ESPN Tucson, 1490-1049 FM.
It's interesting because you're looking at ways that teams are trying to fix themselves.
Right.
They're trying to take what they have, get rid of the broken parts, and fix it with these new parts.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly it.
And it's interesting the way they go about it and why they pick this guy over this other guy. How come he fits in, whereas this guy doesn't?
It's compelling. And, we talked about this last week too, Stacey, that, this is where everybody in the NFL lies, right? We have this stretch for maybe the last month. The Houston Texans will sit there and say, oh, we don't need a quarterback. Well, Tom Savage is your quarterback. Yes, you do. The Arizona Cardinals will sit there and go, well, we don't need a quarterback. Well, Carson Palmer's 47 years old. Yes, you do. And so these people just lie and lie and lie for a month leading up to the draft. And then on draft day, you get to see kind of what their real approach is, what their real plan is. And it's funny, Stacey. There are certain teams that we can count on to hit absolute home runs in the NFL draft every year. Pittsburgh Steelers always do great. Mm-hmm. New England Patriots are the standard by which every NFL team should be run from now until the end of time. Mm-hmm. Okay. Denver Broncos usually do pretty good. Who else? I've sort of been a fan of what the Dolphins have done, dating back to Laramie Tunsil and a couple of other picks.
Seattle's done pretty well.
Seattle always does well. Yep. And you look, and they all have a type, right? Successful teams have front offices that aren't going to get fired because they have a bad year. So they're allowed to draft players who they want, not players who will save their darn jobs, not players who are a reach, not players who can make an instant impact, but players who they like and who fit the culture and fit the system. The Green Bay Packers are a perfect example. You look at them last year, Stacey. They drafted Blake Martinez from Canyon del Oro in Stanford. I think they took him in the third round? Middle rounds of last year. And he showed up, and on day one was their starting middle linebacker for the Green Bay Packers because they found a guy who fit their system. And even if it was going to take a little while for him to learn their system and fit in, management didn't care because management wasn't getting fired with a bad season. Mm-hmm. And then you have the team, Stacey, where it seems like they try to do too much every year and they end up getting burned. And you can look no further than the Cleveland Browns, who own the number 1 pick this year. And the Cleveland Browns, not the smart money, they have the world's easiest pick. I mean, just absolute Slam dunk number 1 overall pick. Myles Garrett, Texas A&M, defensive end, unlike any player physically there is in the draft. Do you think they're going to take the best player in the draft with the number 1 overall pick?
They should.
Of course they should. The smart money says they don't.
Yes.
The smart money says that they do what they've been doing for the last, say, decade. They do what other teams who push and pressure. The Jacksonville Jaguars seem to do this a lot. Not a huge fan of what, you can go down the line. Dallas Cowboys even. Teams that push it in the draft, and that almost never works. You should be able to just take the best player and the best fit for your system when it comes around. But it's almost never that way. Stacey, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Jason Barr will join us from K-Gun Sports. We will talk about Tom Wilhelmsen and their big package with Tom Wilhelmsen that will be on tonight on Channel 9 here in Tucson. Coming up later, we will talk about the NBA playoffs, sports hypocrisy, and my Arizona Diamondbacks. This is ESPN Tucson, 1490, 104.9 FM.
It's the 11th annual Stella Artois Iron Chef Tucson on June 3rd. But before we get to the Iron Chef, we need to know who's going to be competing. Join us Wednesday, May 3rd, that's next Wednesday, at the Rialto for Meet the Chefs, sponsored by Rio Nuevo. Then go to ESPNTucson.com and vote for who you want to see in the Iron Chef Tucson competition.
I love the Iron Chef Tucson competition.
So do I.
I know. Do we know what the secret ingredient's going to be yet?
No.
Can I come up with one?
Even as a person who works here as part of the company putting it on,
yes,
I don't even know.
That is double secret Iron Chef stuff.
Yes.
This is very cool.
Yeah, I don't find out until everybody finds out.
I'll suggest butter, or what do you think? Butter? That'd be terrible.
That'd be too easy.
That'd be a surefire way to die, probably. Jason Barr joining us here from K-Gun 9. I'm sorry, Jason, you walked into apparently an Iron Chef.
No, I love
situation.
the Iron Chef too. Yeah, that's okay.
Jason, you guys have a story that premieres tonight at 5 o'clock on your newscast about Tom Wilhelmsen. I know that you guys put a lot of time and energy into this, talking to him not only up in Phoenix, but talking to his old bosses at the Hut. Through it, and for the people who don't know, tell me who Tom Wilhelmsen is and why we should care.
Okay, so Tom Wilhelmsen is the relief pitcher, one of the relief pitchers for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So here was a pitcher who was a star pitcher for the Tucson High Badgers in 2002. Mm-hmm. 6'6", mid-90s mile-an-hour fastball. He's got a curveball, and was a 7th-round draft pick by the Milwaukee Brewers, which is pretty high. In baseball, they've got 30 or so rounds. So he's a 7th-round draft pick by the Milwaukee Brewers. And in 2003, he is in Beloit, Wisconsin, pitching very well for the Beloit Snappers. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the season, he tested positive twice for marijuana. And the Brewers suspended him for the 2004 season. Mm-hmm. And Tom Wilhelmsen said, you know what? I'm done with baseball.
Wow.
Yeah. So he needs a job. Mm-hmm. He's got a couple of family friends who are working at the Hut on 4th Avenue, and he becomes a bartender at the Hut. Mm-hmm. And the story is about how that comes to be, and how he goes from being a bartender at the Hut to eventually becoming the Seattle Mariners closer, and was out of baseball for 5 years. Right. And so it chronicles the whole timeline of 2002 all the way to the present.
And it's funny because he really got back on the road to baseball by pitching for the Tucson Toros here, the old independent, the Golden League team. And I know that he had touched base with Jay Zucker, who was running the Toros there for a while. How did he connect with them, and was that sort of the stage he needed to get seen by people?
That was. So he had a tryout with an independent team, and the Tucson Toros were an independent team at the time in 2009, and he was quite impressive in that tryout, and that led to him being signed by the Mariners. So most packages in TV news, most packages. Pre-produced story, if you will, are about 90 seconds long. This one's 5 minutes and 10 sequences long. Wow. So this is more like an outside the lines, real sports type of feature that we've been working on for the last few weeks. So he did use the Tucson Toros to get back into baseball, and his dad, by the way, was his high school coach at Tucson High.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. His dad was his pitching coach, I believe, at Tucson High.
Yeah.
Tom Wilhelmsen is now back with the Arizona back. He's with the Arizona Diamondbacks, closer to home. I know he has a home up in Peoria. Why did he pick the Diamondbacks when he signed with them as a free agent in this offseason, and how does he like being closer to home now?
Yeah, so that's told in the story. What happened was at the end of last year, he was released. The Mariners didn't pick him up for this year. And he said, you know what, I want to be a D-back. And he called up his agent and he said, is there any interest on their part? And there was mutual interest from the Arizona Diamondbacks. So he got a non-roster invitee to spring training and impressed manager Torey Lovello pretty quickly and earned a spot in the bullpen.
When Tom looks back at his time here, Jason Barr from K-Gun 9 joining us, you can watch their story on Tom Wilhelmsen tonight at 5. When Tom looks back at his time here in Tucson, working at the Hut as a bartender and trying to basically find himself, what emotions does he have? Is it a time he looks back on fondly or with regret? Or
no,
what do you think?
I don't think he looks back at it with regret. I think he looks back at it and says, I wasn't ready at 18 or 19 years old to hold a full-time job with all the responsibilities. And most of us aren't, and even early 20s, I think, Ryan, is a tough age for a lot of people. Well, it was for me.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And so as Scott Menke and Doug Finnicle, who were now at Finney's Landing and were manager of the Hut, said they saw him at a time, is my favorite soundbite in the story. We saw Tom at a time when life was kicking him around a little bit. And the story goes into how he helped save the bar, in a sense. They needed to drum up business.
Right.
And they weren't what they were looking for. Initially they were looking for, this isn't in the story, but I'll tell you, they were looking for an attractive female,
Sure,
to drum up business at the bar. And here's this 6'6" guy, but it turned out he had a fantastic personality and he really lifted people up and was very good for business. And it goes into what happened to make him be inspired to go get this baseball tryout.
And what was it? Was it one moment?
Yeah, well, there was. It may have been more than one moment, but there was definitely one moment that was talked about. And what happened was he was watching a Major League Baseball game, and this is about 08, 09, and it was involving former minor leaguers who he had pitched against and done well against.
Okay.
And he looked up at the screen. This was at the Hut. He looked up against the screen and said, "I tooled those guys." He takes one last drag. He goes to the back, takes one last drag of his cigarette, puts it out, calls up his dad, says, "We need to play long toss," and goes from there to get a tryout for the independent team.
Wow. And when you talk about successful big leaguers, that Tom Wilhelmsen, by any definition, and looking it up here, in his career, he's made $6.5 million.
Yeah.
He's pitched in, I think, 2 great markets and communities, both Seattle and now in Phoenix. And he is somebody who, again, is sort of that proverbial DL trip away from being the closer for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, right now he's basically setting up for Fernando Rodney. Rodney's an older guy. If the Diamondbacks were to decide to sell, or if Rodney were to get hurt, I mean, this could be Tom Wilhelmsen's job to lose.
Could be. I feel like J.J. Hoover might be a little bit ahead in the pecking order right now. But it's not inconceivable that there could be a point this year that somebody gets traded, somebody gets hurt, somebody's ineffective, and he is the Diamondbacks closer.
Sure.
Because he did close for a time with the Mariners, and he's got that stuff, and he's focused. And we talked to Torey Lovello in the story as well. And he talks about, what an interesting story it is. And it's not just that he was out of baseball. He was out of baseball for 5 years. 5 years.
Yeah, there are movies made about people like this.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There have been a lot of great major leaguers from Tucson, Arizona. There's not a more unlikely success story than Tom Wilhelmsen. Jason Barr today at 5 o'clock. You can watch that on KGUN 9 on your side. Jason, thank you so much for stopping by.
All right. Thanks so much, Ryan. Good to talk to you.
All right. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will talk NBA playoffs, sports hypocrisy, and my Arizona Diamondbacks, Stacey. They keep winning. This is ESPN Tucson, 1490, 1049 FM.
Corona and Hotel Rocky Point want to send you to the beach in beautiful Puerto Penasco, Mexico for Cinco de Mayo. All you have to do is go to espntucson.com/Cinco to register to win. You can also tune in to the Zach Clark Show on the ESPN Tucson Facebook page for a chance to win Corona prize packs. We might try doing that tomorrow.
That's a good idea. Stacy, are guest hosts eligible to win a Corona prize pack?
I believe you are.
Oh, I like this. And how can I register again?
All you have to do is go to ESPN Tucson on the Facebook page.
Okay.
And you will have a chance to win the Corona prize pack.
Okay.
Or go to espntucson.com/Cinco to register to win a trip to Rocky Point.
So basically, here's the deal. I need to win the Corona prize pack, and then I need to apply for and win a prize pack of limes. And then I'm doing great.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Ryan Finley here on ESPN Tucson, filling in for Zach Clark, 1490, 104.9 FM. Stacy, Jason Barr just stopped by, and we talked a little bit about the Arizona Diamondbacks and Tom Wilhelmsen, and they have a story on him coming up tonight at 5. Also in the 5 o'clock hour, Erica Weston from KGUN 9 will come up here, and we will talk baseball. Probably boring, Stacy, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much, yes. Real quick, Stacy, let's talk NBA playoffs here. You know, the Houston Rockets completed their series win over the Oklahoma City Thunder last night. Got a little help from their owner, who decided to bother an NBA official mid-game and was fined $100,000 for doing that today.
Serious?
$100,000, and the video's great. I mean, all you need is your phone and a GIF, and just search for the GIF of this. I mean, he gets up from his seat, he walks up to the official, sort of sticks a finger in his chest, and then goes back to his seat and sits down. Happy $100,000. Hope those 12 steps were worth it.
That being said, that's pocket change for that guy.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. Oh,
that's what's so annoying about it.
That's totally what's annoying. And how's that any different, really, than Mark Cuban getting fined for doing pretty much the same stuff? I mean, not in the middle of a game, but still pretty impressive. But I want to talk about Russell Westbrook. Okay? Russell Westbrook, to me, entered the postseason as my choice, at least, for the NBA MVP. Set an all-time NBA record for number of triple-doubles in a season. Was as versatile and complete, I think, an NBA player as we've seen in a long time. You do not like him, Stacey. I know that.
I'm not a fan.
But I think Russell Westbrook, just a heck of a basketball player. And then you look at what he did in the postseason. Less good, Stacey. Less good in the postseason than he was. You know, he was a guy who scored 47 points last night. 47 points in a playoff loss. But still 47 points, pretty good.
What did it take for him to get those points?
That's sort of what I'm here to talk about. You know, he averaged 37.4 points per game in the playoffs. He shot 38% from the field. You know what he shot from three-point land? 26%.
It's not good.
I'm no good, Stacey. Don't get me wrong. I'm terrible. Put me on a basketball court and I can hit 26% of my threes.
1 out of every 4?
1 out of every 4?
Come on.
Yeah, especially once I get a little time to get warmed up.
Yeah.
He became in the playoffs what he spent the entire season telling us he was not, which was a high-volume shooter who was looking out basically for only his numbers and only his stats. I think he became a little bit of a parody of himself in the playoffs. I think the reason they lost that game was because Russ made it all about Russ. Lost the series, I'm sorry. Was Russ made it all about Russ. That doesn't mean that he's not a great player. That doesn't mean that his season should be considered among the greatest seasons ever had by an individual player in the NBA. But this is going to taint, I think, the way people look at him and the way people look at his season simply because of the way it ended. Thoughts?
It's hard to say. I'm just due to the sheer numbers he put up. Obviously, like you said, averaging the triple-double. Only second player in NBA history to do that. The numbers he put up while averaging those triple-doubles. Only person to ever score 50 points in a triple-double. But you're right. What it took for him to get to those triple-doubles. Right. To get those many points. Yeah, it's great getting a triple-double, but it seemed like it kind of hindered and hurt the team in the long run.
Right. Now, this is a team, I mean, we should talk about this, though. This is a team that, because of what Kevin Durant did to them right before, by signing with the Golden State Warriors over the summer, he left them high and dry to the point where there really wasn't a second option on the team. It is possible that Russell Westbrook did what he did offensively, Stacey, because they had no choice. Because the plan all along was for Russell Westbrook to score as many points as possible because they had no other players. And if you look, though, at, his game log in the playoffs against the Rockets. Can I? Okay. Field goal makes versus attempts. 15 of 34, 10 of 28, 11 of 24, 17 of 43, 6 of 23. He attempted 43 shots in a basketball game.
That's a lot.
43 shots and hit 39% of them.
Yeah.
He in that game, and that was their April 19th loss to Houston. He was 2 of 11 from three-point land. 2 of 11. This is a guy who, and it's so funny because I think, he's going to sign a max contract, I think, with Oklahoma City during the offseason. It is possible that by playing selfish basketball all year, he gets to cash in like no player in the history of the NBA.
Well, he's still under contract for next year.
But
yeah, you're right. They can still re-sign him. But as of right now, he's guaranteed to make $28.5 million next year.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good money.
He's got the player option for the following year of $30.7 million.
Also good.
So,
but this is a guy who it's entirely possible, and I think likely, will put together some sort of will be offered and will agree to some sort of long-term package with Oklahoma City, in part because he has become the face of their franchise. And the reason he's become the face of their franchise, and you hate to say it because it sounds mean, but it's because Kevin Durant ran away, and Oklahoma City is not the kind of market, and it's not the kind of team that's going to attract top-level basketball talent.
Yeah.
And so Russell Westbrook, so it's tricky. If you're and imagine if you're an Oklahoma City fan today, Stacey. The good news is you have one of the 5 most recognizable players in the NBA. You have arguably the MVP during a great season of NBA basketball. And a guy in Russell Westbrook who may, 10 years from now, be looked at as one of the all-time greats. On the downside, so long as Russell Westbrook is doing what he does on a game-to-game basis, which is shooting 47 times, not really passing, and making it all about him, you don't have a shot in hell of advancing to the NBA Finals.
No. And therein lies the problem, I believe, because he doesn't have the greatest supporting cast, but he does have some good players there. Victor Oladipo, I think, is a really good player. I'm a little biased. He went to Indiana and stuff, but it's still a really good, solid guard in this league. Steven Adams, I think, is kind of underrated. He gets a lot of trash, a lot of putbacks and stuff, but you're not going to necessarily run offense through him, but he can give you some production on the floor. They picked up Taj Gibson and Doug McDermott this season, in a trade.
Do you pick up Doug McDermott? Is that how we're defining it? Okay.
He's at least a guy who can stretch the floor for you and knock down some shots.
He does one thing very well. Yes.
And that should work great with Westbrook. Westbrook loves to attack the basket, loves to draw the defense in, be able to kick out to guys like that. But Westbrook doesn't. He seems to want to keep it and get all the fame and glory for himself.
True. And what is the payoff going to be? What lesson will Russell Westbrook have learned from this?
Nothing. I don't think Russell Westbrook is going to learn from this.
No.
And I don't think he's going to change.
No, and here's the thing. He is in a situation where he needs them and they need him. It works out perfectly. He needs a stage where he can shoot 40 times a game and nobody cares. And Oklahoma City is so, I think, hurt from the Kevin Durant departure that Oklahoma City needs to have somebody like Russell Westbrook on its team. Now, it's an interesting arrangement. If the Phoenix Suns had something similar, Stacey, would they take it? I think a lot of teams would.
Perhaps, but I think, how long can you go with this, knowing you're never going to go anywhere in the playoffs, knowing that you have no chance of advancing and getting to a championship, and just dealing with a guy that's wanting to steal the show? And at some point he's going to say to himself, oh crap, I'm getting towards the end of my career. I want a championship if I want to be remembered as one of the all-time greats.
Right.
And then maybe he leaves himself.
It's so it is a deal with the devil for sure. Hey, we've got T Money on the phone. T Money wants to talk about has a comment about Russell Westbrook. T Money, what's up, man?
Yeah, gentlemen. Hey, I totally disagree with you.
Go for it.
Kevin Durant, when he left, left, like you said, a huge gaping hole in that franchise. And if it wasn't for Russell Westbrook filling the vacuum because he could, Oklahoma's going nowhere near the playoffs. So what he did is he put that team on his back out of necessity, and it had to happen. And what we saw was someone who was capable of actually doing what he did. And I don't knock him at all. There are times where you have to play hero ball. This was the time, and he was actually a hero. How many guys could actually do that? Probably less than 5 in the whole league. So what Westbrook did was out of necessity, and the fault lies with the Oklahoma City front office. If you can't get him a complimentary player, you're just going to have more of the same. And like you said, it can't last. But if OKC can get a point guard who can distribute the ball, Westbrook is not a point guard; he's a 2-guard. They can get a point guard who can distribute the ball to the rest of the team, and then get another complementary piece who can actually score as well, maybe a big. I think they have a chance. But until then, you got hero ball. But hey, he did it, and he did it because he had to do it.
That's a really good point, T-Money. And, Stacey and I had talked about this last week a little bit. What he did is impressive. If LeBron James could do it, he'd do it, averaging a triple-double. It is hard to do. That said, the only way Russell Westbrook scores and does what he does this year is because there's no supporting cast. Now that he has done it, you wonder how he will respond to Oklahoma City front office's decision to maybe bring in a supporting cast.
Well, I think the bigger question is who as a supporting cast is going to want to come play with him.
Yes.
I
disagree
with T-Money.
Okay.
I don't think up the floor every time. I don't care if they bring in a point guard specifically for that.
Right, you can call him whatever you want.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the ball in his
Westbrook's going to be handling the ball. And I don't think he's going to relinquish that role. And I don't think other star players are going to want to come and play with a guy like him. Whereas you look like with LeBron James, players want to play with him because he shares the ball, he shares the load, and gives everybody an opportunity.
Well, he gives everybody an opportunity to win for sure. I don't know, with Westbrook, I mean, it is this I find this so compelling. I mean, it's a Faustian deal. Stacey, can we talk about Faust on the air? Is that okay?
Sure.
I mean, if you're Oklahoma City, and picture yourself, let's say, as a fan of the Phoenix Suns. And if I could make you a deal right now, it says that you would have a player on your team who would put together arguably the most impressive statistical season in the history of the NBA. And is a guy who would be recognizable by his first name alone throughout the globe based on what he's able to do on the basketball court. You will see his jersey everywhere. He will lead SportsCenter every night. He will be a superstar in the NBA. But what's the trade-off? Oh, you'll never win a playoff series. If you're a Suns fan, do you take that?
No.
They're not going to win a playoff series anyway.
No. I do not take that.
I
do not want that. I want to be competing for championships. I don't care if I have the greatest player on the floor. I don't care if I have the best athlete out there. I want the best team out there winning championships.
But only one team can win a championship, and so long as you play in the NBA in the time of LeBron James, your team is not going to be you, right? I mean,
okay.
You're in the league right now with the Warriors and the Cavs, which means everybody else is playing for second, I think. If you're not going to win a title anyway, why not have the most recognizable name in basketball, or one of the most recognizable names in basketball, just lighting it up every night? Wouldn't it be, I mean, and I say this only because I have complicated feelings for the Suns here, Stacey. Wouldn't you trade a terrible Suns year wouldn't you trade everybody on the Suns for Russell Westbrook right now?
No.
Really?
Yeah. I would keep a guy like Booker, young, lot of upside, lot of ability.
Is what Booker did at the end of the season any different than what Russell Westbrook tried to do every night?
Booker had that one game. And yes, they fed him the ball purposely.
Right. And they lost.
Yeah.
And they lost. Yes, he scored 70 and they lost. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Stacey, I want to talk about gambling. Can we talk about gambling?
Why not?
Yeah. And coming up later, we will have Zach Rosenblatt from the Arizona Daily Star and Erica Weston from K-Gun 9. This is the Zach Clark Show on ESPN Tucson, 1490 AM, 1049 FM. ESPN Tucson, 1490, 1049 FM. This is the Zach Clark Show. I am Ryan Finley, sports editor of the Arizona Daily Star, filling in for Zach Clark. Coming up in the next hour, Zach Rosenblatt from the Arizona Daily Star will join us to talk NFL draft. We've been talking about the NBA playoffs. We've got Stu on the line. Stu, you want to talk about Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, real quickly, I agree with you, Ryan. I think that OKC and Phoenix are a lot alike, their fan base and just the way their expectations are. And what Phoenix did, they had Barkley and Nash, and they kind of settle for that. They like some kind of notoriety and some reason to go to the games, but don't really demand championship teams. Even look at Diamondbacks right now.
That's a really good point. And Stu, I also agree with me. So thank you for that call. Yeah, you do look at the Diamondbacks and it's tricky. I mean, Phoenix, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Phoenix as a sports city. I think in many ways it is a great sports town. You look at the love that they seem to keep having for the Suns. The Suns were sort of their first great success, Stacey, and I think longtime Phoenicians, if you ask them to name their favorite sports team, it's the Suns. ASU's had some pretty good years in football. It seems like when they're good, fans will get behind them. I think they're terrible hockey fans. I'm not sure they're very good baseball fans, especially now. They certainly were 15 years ago. Great baseball fans.
It's a very bandwagon type city, I believe.
Yeah.
If you're doing well, they'll support you. They'll come out and cheer you on. If you're not, they could care less about you.
Yeah, it's true. And in many ways, they're no different from... And location to me is very interesting here, okay? So Phoenix is located somewhere between California and Texas. Last I checked my map. I think Phoenix fans want to be thought of like Cowboys fans, which is diehard, maybe a little blue collar,
Okay.
high standards, aggressive, and certainly Cardinal fans, I think, are kind of your poor man's Cowboys fans. Okay. In reality, they are a little bit more of a slightly harder edged Anaheim. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that so long as you don't pride yourself on being a great sports town. It's if you look at, I don't think, I grew up in California, Stacey. I love sports more than anybody you'll ever meet, but I'm not going to let sports dominate my life because I think growing up in that area, you have interests outside of sports. I think it's a very Western thing where sports is not your life. This is not Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
You're also dealing with a city that has a lot of transplants.
Mm-hmm.
You have people from all over the country moving there and living there that did not grow up there.
Very true.
They also didn't have sports there to grow up with.
Right.
I mean, the Diamondbacks are a relatively new team whenever you consider the Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, all those.
Of course.
So Diamondbacks relatively new, Cardinals relatively new. You don't have that base that grew up watching them. You're starting to kind of get that now.
Right.
But at this point, you don't have a lot of winning for them to get behind.
Well, and that's exactly it. When you don't have 100 years of history to draw from, when your grandfather didn't take you to games growing up, when your entire family doesn't, set every Super Bowl Sunday as time to watch the Cowboys, you need to win. And in a way, the quickest way to build a fan base is to win. Certainly the Diamondbacks did a little bit of that after 2001, and the Suns did it back in 94, 95. And maybe that's it. Maybe the key to the whole thing is winning. We're going to take a quick break here on ESPN Tucson, 1490, 104.9 FM. When we come back, I will tell you about my Arizona Diamondbacks, Stacey, and why they might be the best team in the National League West.
Are you trading teams there?
Maybe.
All right.